The Bible is a daunting book. It tells us about God, His plans throughout history, and His people as they fall into sin over and over again. It gives us simple instructions on wise living, like in the book of Proverbs, as well as complicated existentialism like in Ecclesiastes. It communicates to us in a personal manner, and it describes the grand nature of the order of the cosmos. Since the Bible covers such a wide array of topics, it can help to have a framework through which to read and understand the story on a large scale. The big picture is this: creation, fall, redemption, restoration. This simplifies the Bible, but it helps to understand what it means as a whole. This is known as the grand narrative. The first part, creation, consists of the first 2 chapters of Genesis. God creates time, space, matter, all the planets and creatures, and humanity. When He's finished, He declares everything good and rests. God charges humans with bringing order to creation and ruling it in His place. The story would have ended there if not for humanity's fateful decision. The fall makes up Genesis 3 and describes the events which lead to the corruption of all humanity by sin and death. Because of the decision to act against God's commands, Adam and Eve were ejected from the Garden of Eden and were subject to sin and death. All of creation was changed. Humanity's ability to rule was hindered. Immediately, God enacted a plan to restore everything, and this makes up the part of the story of redemption. It is by far the largest chunk of the Bible, consisting of almost everything after Genesis chapter 3. God wanted to help humanity return to His order and escape from the control and corruption of sin and death. For most of the Old Testament, this focused on God's chosen people, the Israelites, as they tried to live according to His standards and bring all other nations into the worship of God. Although they had times of prosperity and righteousness, like with Moses and David, they could never live up to God's standards. The prophets of ancient Israel told of a coming king who would restore Israel's glory and lead them into right living with God. Then with the Old Testament, it ends right there. The New Testament begins with God's chosen people scattered and living in captivity. Jesus enters the story and fulfills the words of the prophets, but in a way no one expected, teaching humility and compassion instead of being a conquering king. He is killed, but resurrected in a glorified body. His life, death, and resurrection allow for the offer of redemption to humanity. He ascended to heaven and left His followers to spread the news of this offer of redemption. His followers formed the church, which takes us to the period in which we find ourselves. But there is one more stage, restoration. This is discussed in small portions throughout the Bible, but mainly in Revelation. This stage of the grand narrative deals with the return of Jesus, the ultimate ridding and destruction of sin and death, and making all creation good again, like it was in the beginning. It's like getting back to how things were before the fall, except instead of returning to a garden, we will be entering a paradise garden city. All things will be good again, like in the beginning, but also better. There you have the big picture framework of the Bible: creation, fall, redemption, restoration.